This time on Books That Changed My Life.
Nobody's done this book. Everybody loves the book, but nobody's done it.
That blows my mind. Well, there are many things about Dune that just took my heart and my perception of self and just shook me.
My first concert, 5 years old, in a Baptist church in Bremerton, Washington, Andre Crouch.
What?
I watched him take a room, pick him up, throw him against the wall, grab him again.
You could have been the atheist of most atheists.
Mm-hmm. There was nobody escaping that feeling.
When I was 9 years old, I realized if I used my voice a certain way, my voice is affecting these people's emotions. Look at this. This already turned into a damn therapy session.
What is he saying about artificial intelligence? Do we got to be careful?
Every industry is at risk.
The programmers that created the AI are getting laid off by the AI.
We're doomed. Ecologically, Dune itself has so much to do with the potential of a dead planet and the warnings of being ecologically ignorant.
It's fragile.
Incredibly fragile.
Spice also is like something that gives you mental perception of new dimensions in a way.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried anything like LSD or something that made you see other dimensions?
I felt like there was this underlying creativity of a young kid feeling like they're destined for something greater.
I gotta save the universe.
I gotta go save the whole damn universe.
So, big question. How did Dune by Frank Herbert change your life?
Dune made me feel
Welcome to the Syndicate X Library, where we love books, especially books that have changed lives. We're joined by a very special guest today. He is a Grammy-nominated R&B singer, president of JBR Creative Group, and dyed-in-the-wool reader. He's here to talk about the book that changed his life, Dune by Frank Herbert. We are so excited to announce the Books That Changed My Life website. We made a way for you to show your book pride and that you love books. Hats, tees, hoodies. Check it out. Link in the description. Everybody needs a self-help hat. Please welcome to the show, Eric Benet.
Nobody's done this book. Everybody loves the book, but nobody's done it.
That blows my mind. Nobody picked Dune?
Mm-mm.
Hello.
Hello. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
L'chaim.
What did he order?
Just a nice cup of water.
Vodka?
What did
Straight
you
vodka? Coffee.
Coffee. I should have got the coffee. Can I have a coffee? All right.
Do you want a black coffee or do you want what this is?
I'd like it black.
This is espresso, so it's an Americano.
Yeah, I'm blown away, man.
I'll give you that.
Nobody. Oh, you're gonna give me that?
Yeah, she'll bring
Look
it.
at that, man. I love you for that.
So tell me a little bit about where you grew up.
I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I had a great childhood. My dad was a detective. Mom stayed at home. I'm the youngest of 5 siblings. We were all very musical. Every time I think about my father, I think of how blessed his life was and how tragic it was, because my father had a deep passion for the arts and for education. And being a black man born in the 1930s in Mobile, Alabama, probably the times and maybe a little bit of the programming of imposed limitation of the times, in addition to actual limitations of racial segregation, he wasn't really able to pursue a lot of his real interests as easily as I think he would have been able to do had he been another ethnicity. So he became a policeman for the city of Milwaukee, and he hated every moment of it. And because of his distaste for what he had to do just to put food on the table for us, he kind of turned into a very inward man who didn't speak much and was kind of present but not really present. And it was, I'm grateful for the dad that I had, but it was kind of like not an emotionally present father. Look at this. This already turned into a damn therapy session. You didn't even ask me all that shit.
What would he have been? What would have been the ideal career for him?
He probably would have been a physician of some type, but he was also fascinated by authors and classical music. My father named me after Stephen Vincent Benet. Had a massive classical music collection, and he was the type of dad that was always he would either watch cop shows or cultural educational programming. Yeah, so it was one or the other. Like, book 'em, Dano, or tonight on Masterpiece Theater. So it was one or the other. Yeah.
So is that where you got your kind of interest in the arts? Was from him?
Probably indirectly, yeah.
What was mom's interest?
Mom's interest was whooping our tails when we got out of line, and gospel music, and making sure that our Sunday shoes were shined and we looked good.
She was busy?
Yeah, she was. Yeah, and being a great mom, being an incredible mom, and that rock, that hug that heals you and makes you feel protected, and she was just. I had a great childhood.
My first concert, 5 years old, in a Baptist church in Bremerton, Washington. Andre Crouch.
What?
At
Really?
The piano. Like, maybe that church held 500 people. There were 700 people. And
man, if Andre
watched him take a room, pick him up,
did.
throw him against the wall, grab him again,
bring him to his heart.
Yeah.
And you
at
probably
5 years old.
What kind of impact did that have on you at 5? First of all, you remember that at 5 and how impactful it was, but what did that do to you?
There's something about the soul of gospel music and what he, like, I don't know. It's hard to even explain. It's hard to put into words, like how that sort of revival in a church in that setting elevates people and changes their self-esteem in a way.
So when I was 9 years old and I had a vocal solo, I felt that power. Well, I think primarily I felt the power from God, but I think that power moving through me, I realized if I used my voice a certain way, the way you described Andre Crouch, it was like my voice is affecting these people's emotions. I would see tears, I would see crying, I would see getting up, and I think that was a realization of the incredible power of art when it's authentic. Mm-hmm. And I think somewhere back then in church, it made me realize, like, I wanna wield this power, and I want to improve on it.
Yeah, it's a dimension from somewhere else that just also is like very unifying. Like everybody feels it. Like in that church with Andre Crouch, there was nobody escaping that feeling.
You could have been the atheist of most atheists in that church, and you would have walked in there, and if you would have felt that spirit in my church, and I'm sure in that church too, overcome with emotion of feelings that you didn't know where they came from. And so, yeah, man, it's a beautiful, beautiful power.
Yeah. Why does gospel specifically too, just there's something about it.
Yeah. I think that there are, this is only my personal theory, and I have no scientific backing or peer reviewed whatever, but I think there are certain combinations of melodies and chords that have a metaphysical power that we've yet to tap into and understand. I believe they have a power that can evoke rage, can evoke empathy, can evoke love, can evoke fear, depending on that particular audible alchemy of sound. And I think gospel music, some tantric, some other types of music and sound, it's like laser targeted to the most empathetic and emotional part of your heart. How it works, I don't know. But I know when I tap into it when I'm writing a song, yeah, because I'm always on the verge of tears. I can feel the goosebumps if I'm writing something and I'm getting the goosebumps and I can't contain myself and I have to step up or have to step outside or I have to, whoa, what was that? Then I know that I just tapped into something.
I have no idea if I'm onto anything with this theory, but it might be in Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning. But he's talking about how before there was a higher power or a god, tribal leaders had to fight each other, and basically the higher power was developed so people didn't have to conquer each other. Like we would all serve a higher power that was bigger than us.
Yeah.
And in gospel music, it's aimed at something that's selfless and outside of us. We're singing to something that's bigger than us and selfless. It's not about us.
Mm-hmm.
And, just like whenever you give to others or you're serving others, there's something that happens to you that almost you get more out of it than they do, in a sense. And I think that has something to do with it.
I think you tapped into something, man.
It's the selflessness,
I think
the giving.
The selflessness, because I think as human beings, we are naturally tribal people, right? We started off as these hunter-gatherers who, traveled from region to region based upon the climate conditions of a band of 20 to 40 people that stayed this unit. And there was this egalitarian perspective of the clan that helped them to survive. So I think that feeling of giving, selfless giving to the tribe, just elicits feelings of I'm doing the right thing, I'm doing something good, I'm doing something to continue humankind by giving. And I think it comes from that.
Yeah, and there's something very vulnerable about standing up there with a microphone and you're all alone. Like it's very vulnerable.
Yeah. And it's the first couple times it's very frightening.
Oh yeah, there's all those, jokes like Seinfeld talks about how much people hate, public speaking or being in front of people, and that the guy doing the eulogies wishes he was in the casket because people rated up there. They would rather die than speak in front of others. And yeah, it's very vulnerable.
Yeah, man.
You're letting something go in a sense, right?
You are indeed.
So were you reading books early on?
I mean, I think I read maybe a little more than the average kid, but I think by the time I got to middle school, I was only reading what was assigned to me. My mind was on other things. I think the way I fell in love with this book was it was high school. And I'm imagining for a lot of artistic weirdo personalities like I felt like I had when I was in high school, I had that feeling of I never really fit in anywhere. Teenage years are those years where children and young adults naturally just assimilate into certain groups that they feel like they belonged to. And I always felt like I didn't belong to any of them. And I would read books. I found myself always drawn to science fiction and fantasy, like a lot of kids. I, Robot, Asimov, and Lord of the Rings, and but I felt like when this book was assigned reading in high school, there was something very, very specific about, well, there are many things about Dune that just took my heart and my perception of self by the lapels and just shook me. At the time, I wasn't really understanding why is this moving me so much? And I think I just related so much to this, to Paul, because I felt like there was this underlying, and probably a lot of this is just, you know, the creativity of feeling like a young kid feeling like they're destined for something greater. I think that feeling was prominent in me. And I think I tie that back to my father a lot, because my father he was a very deep and well-rounded man who was withdrawn and quiet. But to know him, you knew, like, yo, Dad, there's a whole lot of layers to you that you're not sharing with everybody. And so I think part of witnessing my dad stifle his gifts made me feel like I feel like I'm destined for something greater, and I am determined not to let it stifle me. And for whatever reason, I just really identified with Paul Atreides on first that point, I think.
What about Paul in the story aligns with that?
I think the book starts with Paul really not knowing that there is a huge importance to his existence. Him, yeah, I'm the son of a duke, I get it, but why is everything so profoundly serious right now? And then he comes into the realization that his existence is going to matter to the survival of the universe. Now, why did a 15, 16-year-old Eric Benet feel like, ooh, I can relate to that? I'm not, other than the fact that I felt like there was something in me that would positively affect a lot of people. I just need to like tap into it.
Did Milwaukee feel small?
Yeah. Milwaukee felt, oh man, Milwaukee, I love y'all. I love Milwaukee, but Milwaukee felt small to me. A lot of the conversations in Milwaukee felt small to me. A lot of the
thought process.
The thoughts felt small. Some of the aspirations of some of the people around me felt small. And I just felt like, I love y'all, I really do, but I gotta get out of here.
I gotta save the universe.
I gotta go like save the whole damn universe. And yeah, so like 15, 16-year-old Eric felt like there's something in me that maybe can't save the universe, but I need to go add to it.
What do you think the book is saying about climate change?
Yeah, that's the thing about Frank Herbert and Dune, where it's like, I felt like ecologically, Dune itself has so much to do with the potential of a dead planet, right? And the warnings of being ecologically ignorant, and how delicate the ecosystem is within a planet. Because in Arrakis, you had this planet where on the surface and to most of the other great houses in the universe, it's like, it's a dead planet. Only good thing about it is the spice. But
and explain what spice is if somebody hasn't read the book.
Right. So the spice melange is an incredibly rare substance in the universe. Well, if you really want to go back, so there was a huge jihad, if you will, hundreds and hundreds of years, maybe even thousands of years before Paul Atreides and his family, where, you know, James Cameron and all of our other directors who are making movies and stories about thinking machines like the Terminator are coming back to take over humanity. Well, Frank Herbert may have been one of the first ones to have that, you know, that trope of AI and thinking machines taking over humanity. So basically, after hundreds of years of struggle, humans were victorious over these thinking machines, and they decided that we got to outlaw computers. We got to outlaw machines that think for us, because that's some dangerous shit. So ultimately, I think what happened is because humans stopped relying on thinking machines, human beings started to evolve. Our consciousness started to evolve. And then they discovered this substance on this dead planet called Arrakis, called spice, the spice melange. And they found that if you use the spice melange, you can do all kinds of things. You can accelerate the way that your brain works so that you can become a computer. You can extend your life. You can even travel through space and time. So it's an incredibly rare substance. And to the ecological point, on the surface of the planet, it appears to be dead, but underneath the surface, there are all kinds of subtleties that are happening within all of the animal groups that are there and all the subterranean caverns of water and other things like that, that all contribute to the production of this incredibly rare thing called spice. And I don't even remember what your original question was, but it was
just what are you saying about the environment?
Yeah, the environment. Yeah, so I think ultimately
it's fragile.
Frank Herbert's comment about the environment is it's incredibly fragile, but if you embrace that fragility and honor it, then something incredibly powerful can come of it.
So you touched on it, but what is he saying about artificial intelligence? Do we got to be careful?
Very. He wrote this book when I was, a couple years old, and every industry is at threat, is at risk now of just being gone, really. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of what we need to worry about. But
I mean, it's crazy that we live in a time that the programmers that created the AI are getting laid off by the AI. They've created something that makes them obsolete.
How about that?
Nuts.
I mean, look at the music industry. It's like everybody's a songwriter now with a couple prompts. We're doomed. We're doomed, man. We got to tap back into authenticity and the realness. I mean, I wish there was a balance where we could be certain that technology will be and always will be a tool for our greatness, not the demise of us. It seems like we're heading in that direction. Butlerian jihad, so.
What do you think spice represents?
Probably represents the power of natural resources and not taking them for granted, and knowing that on Earth, I think we have every resource that we need to survive and to feed every person on this planet. But spice is almost a warning to capitalism and greed, and how certain powers that be may want to hoard all of those resources and profit from something that should be free and that gives life to everyone.
What's the thing that should be free?
Clean water, grain, land. Nobody owns the earth. Food, freedom. People, certain powers that be try to control and hoard these things and give these things to people who they feel are deserving, and hold on to as much, or destroy them, or hold on to as much of it as they possibly can so that they retain the power.
If you had a blank piece of paper, how would you restructure our country? Would you leave capitalism in place?
No.
What would you do?
I would probably create a system. Depending on your contribution and your effort, you should be rewarded. But I think it would probably be a system where we care for those who, whether it be from mental health, physical health, or just emotional disability, can't seem to get it together. I think I would probably have something that was a little bit more inclusive of people who are struggling. I don't know what that system looks like. I just think that the extreme nature of haves and have-nots and what we have now, or this version of capitalism, is profane. I mean, it's like 1% of the population. I don't know the statistic, but it's what you probably know it better than me. 1 or 2% of the population hoards all the wealth of the world, and that ain't right. Somewhere in between extreme gluttony and, yes, a reward system based on your gifts, your attributions, your art, your scientific breakthroughs, you should be rewarded. But somewhere between that and what we exist now, there's got to be something that makes more sense, where babies aren't starving. And
The spice also is like something that has like I don't know, it's kind of like a drug in a sense where it gives you
Mental-
perception of
Yeah.
of new dimensions in a way.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried anything like LSD or something that made you see other dimensions? Mushrooms.
That's so funny that you asked me that question, because just a couple days ago, I tried mushrooms for the first time.
How much did you do?
Not much. So I've never been, I stopped drinking alcohol a couple years ago. I've never been a big weed smoker, do a gummy once in a while. And I felt like a creative explosion with cannabis when I've done it. But I've never tried real hallucinogenics, and I'm not going to do LSD or anything like that. But you can't live in LA without somebody at least once a week saying, dude, man, you got to try shrooms, man. So last week was my week. And it was, maybe a little bit more than microdosing I did. Nothing groundbreaking, but some good feelings.
Did you feel more creative?
No, I feel more creative with my little
Edibles?
Yeah. I feel creative. It's mind blowing, the creativity.
You know you can stack them, right?
Do what?
You can stack them.
What do you mean?
Do the edible, then the mushrooms.
Oh, I'm scared to do that, man. I'm such a lightweight, because if I do too much, once I cross a threshold of edibles, and it's usually a very low dosage, then I turn into a paranoid maniac. But before I turn into a paranoid maniac, if I take the right amount, then I hear symphonies and chord changes and musical explosions in my mind, and it's pretty wild.
But the mushrooms didn't really take you.
No, the
anywhere.
mushrooms just made me feel like warm, fuzzy, and peaceful. And oh wow, that sun! Thank God for the sun. Oh, my skin feels amazing. I love it. I love this sand. Oh, look how it falls.
We're all, we're all connected.
Yeah, all that. I felt that, and that was a cool.
Have you noticed in LA that the new pastor is the shaman? Like people are like, I had to introduce you to my shaman. Has anybody done that for you?
I've heard those conversations.
Yeah, that's the new pastor.
The shaman. All right, somebody hook me up with a shaman. He probably got some good shrooms.
What is Dune saying about religion?
That is the other thing about this story that at that particular time in my life resonated so powerfully with me, because when I was probably before 15, when I was like 13, I started questioning the exclusivity of the religion that I was brought up in. Not so much the exclusivity, but we're taught, as with most religions, like, okay, this stuff we're telling you right now, this is the truth. Those other religions, they're not the truth. So believe in this truth if you want to get to that place. And so I think that when I was 13, 14 is when I started to question the validity of that line of thinking. And then discovering Dune and realizing how religion was used to lay the foundation for a control that was going to come later in time. The other thing about the book is there are so many layers and so many subsects of cultures and groups and religions and beliefs, and it's so incredibly layered, which was attractive to me at 16 years old. But anyway, the Bene Gesserits, way back when that whole thinking machine jihad happened, and the humans won thousands of years before this, or maybe hundreds, I'm not sure. A sect of almost like nuns, a sisterhood, and they were called the Bene Gesserit. So the Bene Gesserits decided that they were going to start this program to try to breed the perfect being, knowing that it would take hundreds and hundreds of years, but they started this program of selective breeding with this person and that person, hoping to eventually come to this person that would be a savior of an inevitable destruction of the world. What they did was they started to plant seeds of prophecy throughout the universe of one day this will come, and they created this religion. And it was just fascinating to me how people from hundreds or thousands of years ago could tell a story so that people hundreds of years later would follow certain stories to keep them docile. And that was very fascinating to me.
When I was a kid, I had these two neighbors that I would play with all the time. Caesar and Abel were their name.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my mom said, you got to pray for them because you're going to go to hell. And I was like, no, they're not. They're Catholic. Like, they believe in Jesus. And she's like, no, it's the wrong Jesus. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense.
How old were you?
I'm guessing 10.
Yeah, and that's.
But I was very upset because I didn't want my friends to go to hell forever.
I know. And when
I couldn't pray hard enough.
And when you're 10, if your parents say something, then it's true.
But it didn't make any sense to me.
But it made no sense, man.
And I would ask them, I'd be like, you believe in Jesus, right? Like, have you given your heart to Jesus? They'd be like, yeah. But it's just a different monetary system is all it was. They went through the priest. We had an offering tray. Like, it was just different.
But then to your story, how sad is it if one of your friends across the street, he believed in Krishna? And be like, oh,
well, that's what I mean. Like,
I can't mess with you then, bro. You at least
go across the world, and they're pretty sure that their thing is the thing.
They're not pretty sure. They're willing to, like a lot of people here, willing to die for the fact that my thing is the right thing. No, your thing is a lie.
It takes a lot of confidence to look somebody in the eye and say, your thing's wrong.
Right.
And I know my thing's right.
Right.
And I've never met my thing.
The whole thing, when you are 15 years old and you're asking yourself those kinds of questions.
Well, that's where my mistrust of authority started, was in religion.
Buddy.
And then just also how the adults would tell you to do one thing and then they did something else. Right
in your face.
They were all having affairs and doing stuff, but you had to wait till you were married.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it just, none of it, if you were okay at math, it didn't work.
Right.
It just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, the hip hop.
Do as I say, not as I do.
All that.
I'm like, no, I don't like that.
All that. I remember having these waking up from these dreams when I was like maybe 5 or 6 years old. And I would have this recurring dream of me being in a burning lake of fire. Because you're taught that, if you don't do this, that, and the other, then, when you die, you're going to burn forever. And that's some serious trauma for a kid.
Yeah.
But,
well, what I had that, and then I had the Ronald Reagan Cold War, get under your desk, the nuclear war. The nuclear bombs are coming. Like, pretty.
But that was real. That was a real. I mean, it didn't go down.
How real was it though? Really?
Well, it wasn't real enough to actually happen. But
we got in a competition where a lot of companies got rich making stuff, but
yeah, that's most likely the purpose of all that.
I mean, I'm all for America having a great military, but it is propaganda too.
I'm all for us having a good military. I'm probably more for people having access to healthcare and people being able to marry who they want and people being able to worship how they want or not.
I'm not so sure of anything that I think that my thing should be the only way.
Yeah, if anything that we've just talked about from our childhood, like, people should walk away from this conversation and be like, well, maybe my thing isn't the one thing.
I'm much more curious why your thing is what it is than me trying to make you believe my thing.
Right.
More curious about that. What other lessons in the book stick out?
There were some things in Dune that aren't the greatest. In retrospect, like years later, not to take anything away from the greatness and how profoundly influential that this book is on science fiction or literature in general, but Frank Herbert had some pretty interesting views about women and homosexuality that I think that were very indicative of the time. And I feel like the villain in this book, Dune, is the big boss of the Harkonnen planet, Vladimir Harkonnen. He was the evil guy in this book. And he was homosexual and clearly it felt like Frank Herbert was connecting homosexuality to an insidious pathological disease of.
He was using negative association as a tool.
Yeah, and I feel like there was a lot of that is probably from Frank Herbert is a product of, what was he born in, 1920? So he's a product of the time. We evolve as human beings, and we understand that, there are many people probably in the 1950s and 60s who would refer to people of my color as derogatory terms, may feel bad about the way they look down upon people. Hopefully they feel bad about it now. But this isn't so derogatory, but he had some really interesting takeaways on women too. The sequels of Dune, like by the time he got to like the fourth book and the fifth book, you had the Bene Gesserits, but then you also had the honored Madres, who were they were like the Bene Gesserits, but they controlled men through sex and they just had heartless intentions and used their sexuality to devour the universe. And of course, it's all fiction, and he's making this up as some deeper meaning. But
there's an authority to it.
Yeah, there is. Usually the main character, the protagonist, or whoever the star is, you get to go inside their head and you get to see what they're thinking. Frank Herbert had a way of whoever steps into the scene, you get to see in their brain. You get to hear their thoughts. You get to see their true motivation in a conversation or their true motivation of what they're doing. He almost to the point where he gives the reader too much information. Like it's almost like he kind of gives the plot away sometimes. And I thought that was really interesting, how there was not only so much information in the world building of Dune, but there was also so much information in each character. I thought that was fascinating. And I think a lot of people call it the greatest science fiction book ever written, and I think there's more arguments to support that than there are to, refute it. So
big question. How did Dune by Frank Herbert change your life?
Dune made me feel, whether it was the wistful creative mind of a 16-year-old or maybe it was something woven in the words of this book, it made me feel as though I had a deeper purpose as I went through this metamorphosis from young man, 16-year-old Paul Atreides, to whatever I'm supposed to be. It made me feel as though there is much that I don't understand yet, but I know that there's greatness in me, and I need to just utilize the gifts that I know are real within me. I think it kind of underscored all that for me when I was 16.
What are you reading right now?
I'm reading this book called Two Thieves.
Would you recommend it?
I would. It's really good. It's a great Two Thieves. Yeah. Who's the author? Somebody say it? No?
We got a thinking machine.
Yeah. Oh no. I'm also writing something.
Really? Fantasy?
Yeah, for the first time. Yeah. So it's like a young adult fantasy. It's probably the age target age would be like 12, 13. Yeah. So
How far along are you with that?
I'm pretty much finished with the book. I just need to fine tune some chapters, and
You know what they say, when you're 80% done, you're only 50%
I'm
done.
finding that because
Yeah, it's hard.
I've literally finished writing the book and the story 4 months ago. And every time I go back and revise, it's like pulling a thread in a sweater. It's like every time I go back and I revise one chapter, it's like, damn, now I got to go back here. And so it's like, hopefully that process will be over in the next few months. But I'm excited about it.
That's fun. That's great.
What about you? What are you reading right now?
It's a book on healing and how people perceive. I don't know. It's just a study on healing and people's perception of it. How it's kind of a magic trick most of the time in psychology. Like how important it is that they believe in the doctor, and then if the doctor has authority, and then if there's social proof, like all of these things make the placebo effect.
The placebo, yeah, sure.
And that's kind of how it is no matter what. Absolutely. I'm fascinated with human behavior and that sort of stuff.
And tapping into the potential there.
Yeah, and just understanding how important it is to say things with authority. If you want to help others, you have to create a persona that they believe in order to help them. Right? Like if you have doctor in front of your name, it has a different effect than if you're just, you watched a YouTube video.
Yeah, man.
Right?
100%.
So all of that kind of plays into it.
You know what I would love? Like when I do finish this book, I would love to give you a copy, and I would love for you to tell me what you think.
Yeah. Be fun. Top 5 albums of all time.
Wow. You hit me with some hard ones, bro. I'm going to say Inner Visions by Stevie Wonder, Sgt. Pepper, The Beatles, Donald Fagen, The Night Fly, the Roberta Flack and Donny Hathaway duet album, and I'm going to say Queen, A Night at the Opera.
I love that list. That's great.
Yeah.
Top 5 books.
Probably at the top would be The Power of Now. And then Dune, and then Upgrade, The Magician's Nephew.
C.S. Lewis.
C.S. Lewis, man. The Magician's Nephew. I love that book. I love the portal, the going through different dimensions. And
Time.
Yes. And then Huckleberry Finn.
Wow. Incredible list. It's fun.
Yeah, man.
Anything else you want to talk about?
Music. If you love an artist, please support that artist. Please go to their shows, because we don't make any money from streams anymore, and we don't sell records anymore. So if there's a particular artist that you love, whether it's country or rap or bluegrass or zither music or whatever it is, when they are in your town, go see them. Keep art alive, read books, and try to help each other in these perilous times.
Good stuff.
We are so excited to announce the Books That Changed My Life website. We made a way for you to show your book pride and that you love books. Hats, tees, hoodies. Check it out. Link in the description. Everybody needs a self-help hat.